This is the Tabernacle podcast with Brayden and Gabby Cromwell and me, John Vermilia. What is up, newest members of the Tabernacle family?
What's up? How's it going?
Yeah, how's it going? We're excited to be here.
You guys, okay, I'm going to pull a Tim. I'm going to pull a 55-year-old grandfather here. Ready? You guys are cute together. I'm just saying, this might even be a glamorous couple. Don't come reach across the table and kill me because you're both athletes. But this is a glam couple.
Hey, that's
Glam
a compliment.
couple. Yeah, I was going to say.
Some people say we look like siblings.
Oh, you look like
right before we got married. I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
What are you saying? I'm a narcissist. I married someone who potentially... No, that's not it. No, you probably should have throat punched that person.
Well,
maybe not.
It was an old lady, so.
Okay, well then don't.
It was a free pass.
Yeah, I think she said that to her granddaughter too.
Yeah.
Oh,
And the person
okay.
she married to.
Yeah, maybe at her age, they're just all looking the same.
Yeah.
Who knows? Well, Brayden and Gabby have taken the big step, the big risk. They've just graduated from Indiana. Well, they've just left Indiana Wesleyan. Where it begins, where it ends, really, with our education. But Brayden has come on staff as our youth pastor in Buckley. And what we thought we'd do in this podcast is just take a minute to get to know you guys, to hear a little bit of your story. You can never do a whole story, like your whole changed life story, and like, oh, here's my 5-minute version and get all the details. This is a little bit of a longer form.
Okay.
But we wanted to take a minute, more than a minute, to kind of get to know you guys. And I just want to say at the beginning, thank you for taking a risk. Gabby, you're probably thinking, this wasn't in the job description.
No, I'm excited. I love it. Brayden's from a small town, so this is totally his alley. And then when we first pulled up, I was like, oh boy.
Really?
And it was funny too, because I'm usually the one that's like, no at first. And then as soon as it happens, I'm the first one to say yes to it. So
Yeah, so you're not talking about the podcast. You're talking about Michigan.
Yeah.
You're talking about
Yeah.
Buckley,
Oh,
Michigan.
podcast though, yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited about that. So.
No, she started the podcast for us.
Really?
And
I
I'm
did,
like,
yes.
Well, you were giving us I don't know about being on a podcast. At least that was the impression that and you have one? We have a competing podcast?
we had one, but
We
Harper
haven't-
came along.
Yes,
And
yep.
it's on a pause right now.
Yes,
But
but we would like to get it going again.
Harper.
so.
Well, we'll get to Harper. Sorry. So Brayden and Gabby have a beautiful daughter who is 10 months now?
11.
She'll be
11 months.
a year old on the 6th of July.
And her name is?
Harper.
Harper. What's her middle name? I
Harper
love you.
Lynn.
Harper Lynn
Yes.
Cromwell.
Yes.
Wow.
It's on my side of the family. My mom's middle name and little sister's middle name. So
That's beautiful.
Hmm.
Well, we want to go back to the beginning. Tell me where you're from.
Ladies first.
Ladies first. Where's Gabby from? My
I'm-
daughter Gabby's so excited there's another Gabby, okay?
I know. I
She's
was
19,
like,
but
that
she's just
doesn't
excited
happen a
that
lot.
now she'll be Gabby V because we have to have a Gabby C. But
Gabby C and
anyways,
Gabby
yeah,
V.
Yeah.
So I'm from, I'm just going to say, I'm Belgrade, Montana, but for people who know Montana, it's around the Big Sky, Bozeman area. So those are the more well-known areas. And Belgrade's just right down the road from Bozeman. And I grew up there my whole life, except for right around middle school, my dad got a job in Oregon. So I lived in Oregon for about 3 years.
Okay.
And then we moved back to Montana. So
Montana girl.
yeah, Montana
All
girl.
the way. Yeah. So were you in the city?
No.
Yes.
Well,
Compared to where I'm from.
Relatively
Well,
speaking.
Bozeman, yes. But back when we were kids and before COVID, it was like Billings and Missoula were the city. And
Okay.
Bozeman was like, I don't know. I'd call that more of a town. And then like you guys call places up here villages.
Yeah.
So now I look back on it and I'm like, Brayden's from a village.
Yeah, I'm from a
Okay.
village.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
So he's from a village. So you were from Bozeman before everyone started going there because
Yes.
they watched Yellowstone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
right.
Yeah,
I
and it's
even
not
s-
even filmed in Bozeman.
I would
That's the
even say
crazy thing.
too,
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
before we went to college, it was still really nice there. And now we go back and we're just like, oh my
Oh,
gosh.
it's mayhem.
Yeah.
Thank goodness we
Wow.
didn't move back.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm like, the traffic on this road right now doesn't even make sense to me.
Yeah.
So,
So you're from a big family, small family?
I have two sisters. I'm the middle child. So, and we're all 5 years apart. And then a lot of my family's actually in Minnesota and then in Missouri because they live right on the border of Kansas and
So they
Missouri,
like
so.
M states, Montana, Missouri,
Yeah.
Minnesota.
Minnesota. Yeah, we
that's
don't really
weird.
move anywhere.
Yeah.
So,
Just kind of all in the
yeah.
Midwest.
Yeah.
So yours was more relative, like city life.
yes.
of deal.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, we didn't, by no means do anything crazy. So we didn't have really small town vibes. I mean, I grew up playing basketball, so like that was my entire life. So
You're in the right place.
So yeah.
Michigan
absolutely.
people think basketball is king. It is crazy. When I moved here, it was like, oh, you don't know anything about basketball? Or, yeah, I know something, but you didn't play basketball? I used to be 5'10". No, didn't, right? They're nuts about basketball. So you're in the right place.
Yeah, absolutely. So
from a young age, you played basketball?
Yeah, my older sister and played like travel ball out there. And at the time, it was just kind of like whoever put together teams and whatever. Now it's a lot more organized with like AAU and things like that. But my dad coached with one of his buddies. And so I was in the gym from like the time I could remember. So
So it's a family thing. Dad,
Yep.
coach. I get it.
Yep.
May or may not be a dad coach.
Yeah.
But of a different sport.
my parents actually coached soccer too, because I grew up playing soccer all the way through high school
You
until I
played
had
soccer?
to. Yeah.
Brayden, you're fired. You're on staff now. Let's go. No, I'm just kidding. I don't have that power. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's cool.
Yep.
Your parents are Christian. Well
Yep.
done. All
So
right.
yeah.
And so you're from a village, though.
Yeah.
What's
hopefully
what's a village relative to Bozeman?
both complete different sides of the spectrum.
So how far?
Yeah.
So what was the name of the town that you're from, Brayden?
I'm from Scobie, Montana, 10 miles from Canada, about an hour from the North Dakota border.
Yeah.
Closest Walmart's 2 hours away.
You're 2 hours?
Yeah, it's either you go to Canada to go to Walmart or you can drive to North Dakota.
Wow.
But the closest one in state is like 4 hours.
Yeah.
Okay,
and
wait.
that's,
Do they deliver Amazon to where you are?
Yeah, it just
Okay.
takes
All right.
forever.
takes forever.
Don't get Prime, it doesn't help.
It doesn't help.
Well, it's funny too, because when we came here and Braden's like, when he first told me about Buckley, he's like, it's a small town. And I'm like thinking, oh, we're going to be so far away from everything. Because in Montana, when you're from a small town, it's like you're out there.
Yes.
Like when you go to Costco, you're like taking 2 vehicles and stocking
Yeah.
up for like 2 months straight.
You're
so,
bringing the trailer.
Yeah.
The horse
You're going off
trailer.
the
You're
grid.
packing it
Yeah.
full of bug juice.
Whole semi-load.
Yeah. So, yeah. So like 40-minute drives to us, hour drives to us isn't a lot.
It's nothing.
Because Braden would drive 8 hours to come see me on the weekends. So,
Stud boy.
Yeah,
I know.
committed.
Yes, committed, in love, Twitter-pated.
That's right.
So she's in a city.
Mhm.
Like, what's the situation in your town? Like, what did your dad do? What did your family do?
Yeah, I'm from farming community. My dad is farmer about 23 hours of the day and bus driver 2 hours of the day. He's
There's
also
not
like
many hours of the day left.
no
Yeah.
head
Wow.
mechanic at the bus barn too, so he just does what he has to do. Made sure they're running good. My mom was my 4th grade teacher. I'm pretty sure me or my sister was her best student. So out of the two
Not
of my
you.
other siblings, it was me or my sister. My other 2 brothers are just
Wow.
crazy.
And how many siblings are in your family?
I have 3 younger siblings,
Okay,
and then I'm the
gotcha.
oldest
Gotcha.
out of them. But yeah,
Are you also the tallest?
I am the tallest,
As
but
of right
barely.
now.
I
Wow.
think my little brother Reed, who's a freshman this year, he might pass us all. He might be the
Okay.
most athletic too,
Yeah.
which is hard to admit. But
So for the podcast family, I don't usually draw attention to someone's height, but when you meet Brayden in real life, are you 6'5"?
6'5", yeah.
6'5". You're 6'5". Now, were you a basketball guy as well?
I was. Actually, my high school team, we only lost 3 games all 4 years of high school.
Wow.
I went undefeated my
they
senior
were
year.
supposed to play in the state chipper his senior year. And they actually would have won it, but COVID happened, so they'd be co-champs.
Did you
But-
call it the state chipper?
Yeah.
Is that what the state championship's called?
No, well, it's
Well,
state
yeah.
championship, but we call it, state
State
chipper.
Well, yeah. I
Yeah,
love like
state
Yeah.
chipper.
local colloquialisms or whatever. Okay,
Yeah, but we were playing a team we played in divisionals, and we blew them out of the water in divisionals. So
nice.
So then they had to get co-champ banners.
Oh wow.
that was terrible. Well, we didn't. We just put champions on our
Yeah.
banner.
Yeah, not coach
Yeah,
champions.
no.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Get that
like
They
out
the
of
know.
community
They
over
know
there.
over there. Yeah. They
Yeah.
know who the real champs were.
So you grew up working a farm.
Yep, I'm working on a farm, helping
Yeah.
my dad.
Yeah.
That was about it.
And sports?
Sports, football and basketball. I swam in the summer just to stay in shape for football season.
Wow.
But yeah, lived and breathed sports.
Montana people. And you said, fun fact that I know from before the podcast is that watching college football, there was only one team on in Montana.
Most of the time, other than Montana State, I got Michigan football games.
And so you became a Michigan football
I became
fan.
a huge Michigan football
When he told
fan.
me that, I was like, oh, that's funny. And then he kept telling people that, and I'm like, oh, are you actually serious?
And then
he's
she
like,
came to my
"Yes."
house and saw all the stuff I made in my
I was like,
plasma
oh, okay, that
can
actually
class,
makes
some of my
sense
Michigan
now.
stuff.
Oh my day! No wonder Uncle Charlie loves you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And then I go down in his basement, and I'm like, I could live here.
Oh, 100%. He's pathetic. I love it. I hate it at the same time. But if you don't know who we're talking about, Charlie Alcock, he's been on this podcast multiple times, but he's the most annoying, obnoxious, lovable Michigan fan
Uncle
you could
Charlie.
possibly. Yeah, Uncle Charlie. Yeah. So let's go back to Gabby for a second. So talk about faith in your growing up years. Like, did you grow up going to church? Is faith a big part of your family, or how did that all play out?
Yeah, so I did. Yeah, at first we did grow up in the church. I did the whole youth group and children's ministry stuff, and then I grew up in a Belgrade, like it was an Alliance church. So
Christian Missionary Alliance, CMA. Yeah,
Yep.
good.
And so I didn't. I would say my older sister was a lot more fully immersed in it because we moved to Oregon when I was going into middle school. And when we moved to Oregon, we stopped going to church, and we had a really hard time finding a church family. And my family was going through a lot. My mom's dad, my grandpa, had to have like a heart surgery, and he ended up passing away right before Christmas in our first year there. And then my dad also ended up having to have brain surgery in our first year there. So all this stuff happened, and then it was just, we kind of put church on the back burner. But I would say that my parents both did a really good job at the foundation of it, because it wasn't like we stopped going to church and then just stopped believing. It was, church just wasn't there, but our morals and expectations and our beliefs were always there. But I would say I was not fully committed to Jesus. I didn't really understand the concept of, Jesus, God, the Holy Spirit, all this stuff. And so it wasn't.
You're just shooting hoops,
yeah,
living the dream.
literally,
and,
yep.
Bozeman.
And my parents, my parents drilled into us just like humility, and so that's just what we carried into sports. And so I did go to church once by myself in Oregon with my older sister, but we just it didn't stick, and it wasn't until we got back to Montana, and then I ended up, my whole high school I went to church by myself. So
Really?
yes.
To the CMA church?
No, that's when I started out with a non-dom, and then I ended up going to a Wesleyan, but I didn't know they were Wesleyan. So, and then that's
Good
where
church.
I landed
Yeah.
and found really great community there through high school, and thank goodness, because high school was a bit rough. So.
What was rough about high school? So this, like, I'm enamored by this because your faith is becoming your own, because that's rare.
Yeah.
Like, I always get pumped. We have students at all of our campuses that come alone, and they don't come with their parents, or their parents come at Christmas and Easter. And I'm not sitting here to judge that or whatever, but
absolutely.
you know that there's something going on in this young person's life. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and that's how my parents were too. Like, they'd go Christmas, Easter. I mean, they were always like, and it was always so interesting to me because I could talk to my parents about faith like all the time, and they would totally agree and everything. I just think that there's just some type of roadblock with, the church and them finding community in that. But it was, I came back my freshman year, got involved with FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, pretty early on.
Sorry, freshman of high school? Mm-hmm. Okay.
And we had a athletic trainer at the school who led that and did a great job at I think the first meeting, he answered like all the questions I had in the back of my mind. And I was just like, okay, I'm ready to be all in on this, because this is what I've been waiting for. And it didn't take long. It was like the end of my freshman year. I committed my life to Christ. I kind of changed drastically how I played basketball, how I viewed basketball.
Wow.
And a lot of it was just like, okay, God, like, you take it as far as you want it. And I think that took a lot of pressure off me, because my freshman year I made varsity basketball, full-time varsity, and then I ended up starting halfway through the season. And I always felt like there was a lot of pressure on myself because we didn't really have a point guard at the time. So I ended up becoming the point guard super young on the team. And so
that is pressure. I know enough about basketball to know that.
Yeah.
And I may or may not be married to a point guard.
Yeah. So I mean, I loved it. I mean, I really wanted my whole life to be basketball. So, and I put my entire identity into ball. So, but by my junior year, I ended up I had scholarships, all the shebang, talking with college coaches.
Division I. I'll let her just say
I was
scholarships.
super excited and everything. But 8 games into my season, I ended up finding out I had a really rare vascular disease that put a lot of that on hold. And the crazy thing about it was I ended up committing my life to Christ at the end of my sophomore year, and then had a best friend that I just grew a ton with in my faith and in my relationship with the Lord. And then I told her I wanted to get baptized at her church because that's the church I was going to at the time. And then all this stuff started happening with my vascular issue. And then I ended up getting baptized right before I found out a diagnosis, which was just really crazy because after I found out what it was, I felt like, oh my gosh, I just committed my life to Christ. And now my whole world is crumbling.
Yeah,
so.
it was a severe diagnosis.
Yes, yeah. It's called popliteal artery entrapment. It's kind of a really rare random thing, but for some reason, my calf muscles behind the knee just like totally engulfed and entrapped the vein, artery, and nerve behind my leg. So, and nobody could really figure it out. So I ended up getting a lot of extensive nerve damage in the waiting to figure out what it was. So we went to Mayo Clinic my junior year and then ended up coming back to Montana to see a surgeon. And once he saw on the scan what it was, he's like, okay, we got to get you in immediately if you want to keep your leg. So
there was a risk of losing your leg and you're 19, no, you're
I was
17?
17? Yeah.
17.
17 years old. Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, I remember the first thing I said when I woke up from surgery. This was all like around February my junior year. So that's when they finally got the diagnosis. I had missed at that point the whole season, basically. And then, so Montana's a very like tight-knit community. So like everything gets in the news. So as soon as like my diagnosis became public, they're very community oriented. So a lot of things become public really quickly. And then as soon as that happened, all those scholarships pulled away because they're like, yikes.
Wow.
Don't really want to touch you with a 10-foot pole. So, I totally understand, like, hearing things like that, you're like, there's no way this girl's going to get back on the court. So, but yeah, the first thing I said when I woke up from surgery was, is my leg still there? And the nurse was so confused. So,
because that was a possibility? Like, so when you went into the surgery, you didn't know if they were going to take your leg or not?
No, he told me, he was like, I don't know what we're going to see when we get in there. And if it's really bad, like, we're not going to just split the surgery up. We're just going to do what we have to. So.
Oh, my days.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the trauma.
Yeah, it was a lot for sure.
At 17? So you wake up, you obviously have your leg.
Yeah, which honestly, like, is crazy because at that point I was like, oh, like, thank goodness. But I had no idea. Like, the amount of nerve damage I had to relearn everything with that leg. I had to relearn how to lift my foot up, push off a gas pedal, like walk. Yeah. I had to relearn everything. So
this was invasive. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, so I woke up from surgery. I was there for a little while, just recovering, making sure everything looks good. And then I didn't get any blood clots just with the vascular surgery. And then, it didn't take long for me to get very upset at how difficult it was to move my leg. So
because you're on a schedule. We got my senior year is coming up. I still want to do college. Yeah.
Yeah. So by the time I hit the summer, it was like maybe 8 weeks later after, I would say around April is when we got really extensive with PT, but I was having to be in a walking like orthotic brace. So something to just like make my foot just like at this angle. So
wow.
Because I couldn't lift it up, couldn't push off of it. So
now I think I heard from Brayden that rehab went well, whatever. You got through it, you powered through, and then another hammer drops. Yeah,
so I was going through rehab and everything was going well. And then there was just a couple symptoms I was still having and that we just didn't understand like what was going on. So we went and met with our surgeons again, and then they recommend that I see a thoracic surgeon, which is like the guys that deal with like lungs and things like that. And I was just like,
no, it's my leg. It's not here, buddy.
It's so random. But the surgeon deals with things called, it's known as like complex regional pain syndrome now. But when I was meeting with him, he called it reflex sympathetic dystrophy. So like you have your sympathetic nervous system. And so for whatever reason, because of the trauma that was happening in my leg, my sympathetic nervous system kept sending signals of like, this is painful, there's something wrong, this needs to get fixed. So what this guy did was we tried a couple nerve blocks, which, by the way, if anybody's had a nerve block, they would know they're the worst thing ever.
Oh, wow.
And then once we noticed that those worked, he actually went in right to like my lumbar spine area and took out my lumbar sympathetic nerves. So they kind of run along your spine. So, but in the surgery, he actually, the last nerve that he was pulling out was somehow rooted to my vena cava. vein, and so he actually tore a hole in it. And so I lost a lot of blood, and it was actually an intern that saved my life. He somehow was able to stick his finger and catch the hole, but yeah,
Whoa.
I woke up from that surgery like I got hit by a train.
Wow.
And
this is when you're 18.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just turned 18, and this was the start of my senior year. So I spent a lot of my end of my junior year and most of my senior year in and out of the hospital. So it was, yeah.
And how is your faith in all this?
Oh, it struggled for sure. But the cool thing about it was that I had already had such a great community at the church that I was in. And also my physical therapist had a really good relationship with the Lord. So that helped a lot because I was able to go and, have conversations with him. And, he encouraged me a lot in my faith and to, not just diss that because of what I'm going through, but to kind of like sit with the Lord in this and to just go through the valley and see, what he's teaching me. And he's like, he would say things like, I promise that when you get to the other side of this, it'll make sense. And like, you will learn so much from this. So I just hang on to a lot of that. I'm also very competitive.
Yeah.
So when people say things like, oh, you'll never do this again,
like,
or just wait and see, it's like I get really competitive.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
So yeah, so like when my surgeons were like, you'll never play basketball again, I was like, okay, like, you don't know who I am. So my senior year, I ended up rehabbing the heck out of everything. And like, I don't know, halfway through the season, I got the green light from my PT to start practice. And then a week later, they let me play in a game for the first time. So, which was just so cool because the community is just like rallied. So
and
I
it
had
all
not been
come
used to that.
back. And you shot the 3, and it was
I did shoot a 3.
The
I
whole
did.
crowd wearing Gabby's back shirts.
Yeah,
They're
they
playing
did. The
Eminem
yeah.
for her.
Guess who's back?
because Michigan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was cool though. Yeah.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
that was a really defining journey for me. I mean, that's where I had a lot of really cool experiences. I had like a MRI done, and I literally feel like the Lord spoke to me during that through a nurse. And, the nurse was just like, hey, I want to tell you about this word, like hupernikeo. Like I lost my sister to this. And so
What was the word?
hupernikeo means to be more than a conqueror. And it comes
nice.
from Romans 8:37.
The tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that tattoo.
Yes.
now.
Yeah, I got that tattooed. That was my first tattoo. So,
Yeah.
which
So
has
we
been
are
really
more
cool.
than conquerors in Christ.
Mhm.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So God's showing up in this.
Mhm.
You're not just brushing over it
Nope.
and saying, no, there was some, were there
Yes.
some why me moments?
Yes,
Why me,
absolutely.
why now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially when I found out like to get to college ball was going to be like not what I envisioned because I wanted to play D1. I wanted that to be my whole life. Like I had such a plan, right? That's how we always are.
Yeah,
We have such
yeah,
a
we
plan,
are.
but God comes in and says, nope, I have a better one. So, which it's been so true. I mean, sitting here today, I can say like, I wouldn't have changed a thing. Like I would
Really?
walk through that. Yeah.
Wow.
100 times over if it meant that this is where I'd be today. So
Brayden, you may have married up.
Yeah.
That's probably the longest conversation, but just because of stuff, right?
Yeah,
That's probably the
no.
longest conversation that I've
Yeah.
had with Gabby right there.
Mhm.
You probably married up.
Yeah, for sure.
You most likely outkicked your coverage.
Yeah, no doubt.
To use the football analogy
Yeah.
for the lunks.
No,
over
yeah,
here.
yeah. My
Yeah.
testimony's nowhere as cool as hers,
No.
and it's kind of funny because I didn't really know who she was until all her stuff was breaking out over the news,
Really?
and then it was her faith that like caught my attention.
it's actually crazy because we did like we had a news guy who would do like mini documentaries on people and just like crazy stories. And so he did a mini documentary on me, and it aired at the state basketball like tournament is when he aired it across everything. And Brayden was in his hotel room and watched it. And this was before we had met.
I'm like, oh, who's that girl?
Ooh, so let's turn the camera this way. So, because I want to see how these stories intersect.
Okay.
This is so cool.
Yeah.
So, what's the faith journey at the Cromwell family ranch farm?
Farm,
Yeah.
Ranch, I love it.
Super
1,000
small.
acres on the,
Yeah,
yeah.
1,000 acre field. But
Yeah.
growing up, my parents raised us in a Lutheran church, but being from a small town, we had a Catholic, Lutheran, Assemblies of God, and Alliance Church. And that was it.
It was one church of all 4 of those
No,
things?
no, no,
Oh,
no, no.
I was like,
I was like,
I
Four
gotta go
churches
see
in the
this
town.
church.
4 churches
Gotcha.
between
Yes,
the town.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we grew up Lutheran.
Yeah.
My mom was raised in the Lutheran church. My dad was raised Catholic, and he decided to join the Lutheran side of things. So I grew up going to Sunday school, youth group, confirmation classes, all of that stuff. I just feel like part of this is my fault for checking out during church service and probably youth group too, but just like not learning what it meant to be a disciple of Christ, where I was under the impression, actually talked about this yesterday, of like antinomianism, which is in Jude, of like, I can believe in God, but I can still participate in whatever I want, do what I want. And that's kind of the life I was living up until my senior year, and where we had an FCA meeting, and my head football coach gives his testimony, and he's explaining everything in his life, like all the bad, ugly things he's ever done. And I'm like, he's literally me. I'm living his life. But then he got to his transformation in Christ, and I'm like, that inspired me.
Wow.
And then from that
Your
day,
head football coach.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then from that day on, I was like, I just got to get into the Bible. I just got to read the Bible. I didn't know where to start, so I just started at the very beginning, which was probably not a great idea because I was super confused.
What in the world?
Yeah. But I just kept reading. Like, I made sure like it became like a discipline and habit. And then I made the joke yesterday to the students, like, it's like God was looking out for me, even though it sounds corny, because 2 months later, I see this girl on the news who has an incredible faith story. And like something about that attracted me to her. And like April, she committed.
Yeah, I committed. So he had committed to, we went to our first school was Montana Western in Dillon, Montana. And so he had committed there for football during, I don't know, the winter months, Christmas time.
Yeah, it was like right before Christmas.
Yeah, and then that was one of the only coaches that took a chance on me was Coach Lindsey Woolley. And he was just like, hey, like he called me a steal on the news. Like, he's just like, just because she's going through this, like, he's like, we got lucky. So I ended up committing there, and then
go where you're wanted.
Yep.
That's what I tell student athletes all the time.
Yeah.
And then I followed her on Twitter, just like, oh, this is so cool.
It's signed,
And then, this is so dumb, but somehow she got my Snapchat.
Yeah, we started chatting.
And then hit me
chatting
up.
on the Snap.
And then we started just chatting on
Which
that.
is funny that he saw me first, but I was the first one to reach out to him.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So is this, as the kids say, somebody slid into someone's DMs?
Pretty much. I would say,
Actually, we
Matt, did you see how I did that? See, that's what the kids say, Matt. Lord Matthew Corey Hughes, our executive producer. Yeah, they don't say it anymore. Sorry. Thanks, pal. Check. Yeah.
But like a year before this, me and my friends were at a summer basketball tournament in Los Angeles.
Wait a minute, is that Bozeman?
Yeah.
I love it, Los Angeles.
And we're walking to PetSmart because we got nothing else to do, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to go buy some fish and put them in the river. I probably shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
But that's
Just
what
be
we
naughty,
were doing.
boys. Yeah.
Confession.
Yes, that's all right.
But
Misdemeanor.
Gabby and her friend were driving down the road.
we were stopped at a stoplight.
And we didn't know who they were, but we're trying to get a ride to PetSmart.
Yeah,
So
they
we're dumb, hitchhiking down the road, and they stop, roll down their window, and one of my friends is like, can you guys give us a ride? And they like, we're all smiling, giggling, just drove off.
Yeah, we're like, no.
And then I'm telling her this story, like, I don't know, after a year of dating. She's like, wait, that was you guys?
I was like, that was us.
Yeah. I'm like, we didn't even know
Good job.
that.
Girls don't pick up all these dudes. And they're giant. Right? You
well, the funny thing too was my best friend that was with me thought his cousin was cute because I specifically remember Parker. So
yeah,
it's just because she kept talking about him and wanted to go
Parker.
back, and I was like, we're not.
And you're
going
like,
back.
no, we're not going back. We don't know those guys.
Yeah.
Now in football, you were like, you played tight end.
Tight end and DN, yeah.
Yeah, big tall guy, got good hands.
Yeah.
So did you prefer the offensive side or the defensive side?
I actually
of the
preferred the defensive side of the ball, but I was so big and heavy. A lot of college coaches looked at me and were like, we want to make you a tackle because of my height and just like body frame.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not going to play offensive tackle because I could have went D1 to do that, but I specifically went to a smaller school so I could play tight end.
Yeah.
And then I get there and they're like, hey, we're short O-linemen. You're going to be an O-lineman.
Oh.
And I'm like, no, I'm not.
Yes.
So I lost 50 pounds over the summer to
what
make
were
sure
you?
this didn't happen.
Good.
You were like
And then it happens.
225.
And then it happened and you were underweight?
It still happens. And now I'm 50 pounds underweight.
Because were you 220 when you got to Western, or
Yeah, I was like
250?
225.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
And this is the kind of weight you're trying to put on. Like you're in the weight room, you're eating all the stuff on the farm.
Yeah, I'm cutting carbs out, all the
You ate
added
your
sugar.
little brother's 4-H pig
Right.
for lunch.
Peas right out of the field.
Exactly.
But no, yeah. And then I get there and they're like, "You're going to play O-line."
Wow.
And then they just throw me in with like the twos. So I'm right behind the starters.
Oh, man.
And I'm like getting a rude awakening,
Wow.
going from like 8-man football where
Mhm.
I was just a beast because of my size too, just getting
The
thrown
11,
around.
man. Yeah, in college. What was the level at that, what did you call it again? Montana something? Or was
Montana Western. It was
Yeah.
a NAI school
Yeah.
like Indiana
Yeah.
Wesleyan,
D1, yeah.
but they're very competitive.
Mhm.
And it was kind of funny because I'm like, I'm still not playing O-line.
Yeah.
So we get the winter conditioning and I'm just smoking everybody in the winter conditioning drills. And finally they moved me to tight end.
Mm-hmm.
But then she has a bunch of medical stuff. And I think you
Yes.
should
So,
talk about.
so are you dating at this time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like,
so you met up.
okay,
Yep.
on
I guess
social
I
media.
should talk about
Yeah.
how. So our first date was she invited me to church
Mhm.
and
Wow.
to like go meet her parents. So
Yeah.
I get to church and I grew up in a Lutheran church and
Yeah.
she's going to a Wesleyan church
Mhm.
even though she doesn't know it. And there's like what feels like 1 million people to me in the lobby. There's probably like 250 people.
yeah.
And I'm
It's
like-
not a big church.
What am I doing here? And then we get in, there's like LED lights, no pews, a stage. I'm like, where the heck am I right now?
You're in T2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they start singing these songs, like modern worship songs. And I'm like, I don't know what they're singing right now. I just feel lost. And then the preacher gets up there and gives like a 30-minute sermon. And I'm like, he's been talking for a really long time.
Wow. Yeah.
And kind of lose interest in like, this is like how I know it's not like bright lights or the preacher, like
Mhm.
how this happened. Cause then they get to the last worship song and it's like the Holy Spirit like started taking this weight off of me.
Mhm.
And I'd like get down on my knees and just start bawling, like
Wow.
bawling my eyes out.
This is on your first date?
first date, and I'm freaking out. Like she's never gonna want to hang out with me again.
I'm just like, I'm just gonna let him do his thing.
Wow.
and it's like,
Because that's not, that kind of expression, that's not, and this is no slam on Lutheran church or the Catholic, but that's not normal in the Lutheran
no,
church.
no. I'm like, I would never do this on a first date either.
Yeah,
I'm like, I got
this
a
is not
cool
normal
guy.
first date behavior.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like, I got a cool guy. This, and I'm like, I can't help it. And it's like
Yeah.
this weight's being lifted off my shoulders, and like this whisper of like, it's okay,
Mm.
just come to me.
Mm.
And then after
Mhm.
that, I was like, my life has been transformed ever since.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So did you talk about that with her? Like, did you get
Not
up and
first.
compose yourself and you're like, that's not normal?
Not at first.
I don't
was
think at
too
first.
scared.
I think we
was like,
actually
I don't know
didn't
what she
talk about
thinks
it
of
at
me.
first.
Yeah,
I think we
Wow.
just talked. We specifically talked about the message, and
yeah. Which-
I wasn't till I probably had to move home that we actually started to probably talk a lot more about.
yeah.
our
So
faith.
like, I would say a month after all this happened,
Mm-hmm.
she's doing basketball. I'm doing football.
Mhm.
It's COVID, and she goes out to her car one night. and,
Yeah, so
yeah,
I-
you can tell that
so-
story.
So my college experience already was different because in order for me to play ball, I had to do a ton of maintenance. So like I had a PT, I had to work
Mhm.
with a trainer. So like my schedule was like wake up early, go do treatment. I had PT class, and our class schedule was like, I don't know, it was 4 hours, 3 hours
Yeah.
a class,
3
one class.
hours. 3 hours.
So
But
and
that's
then
all you had.
Mhm.
Yeah,
the
And then
rest
we
of it.
had, open gym, weights, and then I would do treatment again. And then by the time I got my dorm, I was so exhausted. And I felt like I barely had enough energy to get class
Oh, it's
done.
a full-time job.
Yeah.
College sports, I don't care
Yep.
what level, it's a full-time job.
Yeah. And so,
more so
Yep.
when you're rehabbing from, I almost lost my leg. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I mean, it was like 2 weeks, and I was just like, I don't know if I can do this, God. Like, I just am not finding joy in this anymore. It feels like this just isn't what you have. So I actually went out to my car one night because I had to go home and pick up batteries for my coach. But I was just sitting there, and I literally I broke down and was like, God, like, I don't even know what you want from me anymore. I don't know if it's basketball. I don't know if it's something completely different. At the time, I was going to school for physical therapy. So I was just like, I don't even know if this is what you want for my life. And I was like, this is just so painful. I was like, so if basketball is not what you want, take it away from me and make it very clear. Like, don't even give me a reason to second guess it. And it was the next day at practice that I was riding the bike because I couldn't play. I wasn't cleared for open gym yet. And I like my left side. So this all started on my right leg.
Yep.
But then my left foot, I looked down like halfway through my bike session, and it was purple. And that's how everything started on my right leg. And I
the same vascular thing.
Mm-hmm. So I like freaked out. I called my mom. She's like, okay, just come home. We'll get you in. And it was like a day later, I got the diagnosis that everything had progressed to this left side.
The same thing you've rehabbed for 2 years, 3, 2.5.
2.5. Yeah.
2.5, a year and a half. I don't.
Now
Junior year to freshman year of college.
So it's like you're back to square one on the right side.
Yep.
Where's your mind and heart? And
that was a lot harder for me to grasp because I knew what I had prayed 2 nights before that. So like when I got that news, like, and I wasn't a very emotional person in front of my parents. I had a really hard time. I think in front of anybody, I had a hard time. Just because I always felt like, okay, like I'm the believer in the family. Like I'm the one who got baptized. I'm the one who, believes in, this Jesus and believes that even when I'm walking through something like this, like he's good.
Yeah.
So,
I'm more than a conqueror.
So like it was just
but
really
I just
hard.
got conquered again.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my days.
So I got in the car and I just started crying and my mom's like she couldn't even find the words. She's just like, I'm so sorry. Like I don't. Because I knew at that point, like basketball was done because like I was very clear with God. And so that to me was a very clear answer of, okay, I have something different for you. And even though like you're going to walk through another tough season, like, we're going to figure it out together. So, and I think it was just so hard too, because Brayden and I had just started a new relationship. And I think he was terrified that I was just going to break up with him.
Oh gosh, I was so scared.
And so, and it was kind of funny. So like through high school, I wasn't like really into the whole, spending my time with boys because
dating
I
scene,
just, I was just so into basketball. So like if I ever dated and a guy told me he loved me, I was like, ooh, yeah, I can't do that. So
see ya.
yeah. So when Brayden first met my parents and everything, they really liked him. And my mom and dad were specifically like, we like him. Like, be nice to Brayden. Keep him around. Give him a chance. So I was probably the girl in the family they didn't really have to worry about with all that boy stuff. But yeah, so I ended up having to move home, which was really hard because I had to, I didn't want to like completely shut the door. So I kind of kept it open of just like, I'm just going to get through the surgery, see where I'm at. And then, maybe I'll go back to Western, maybe not. I don't really know what God's got for me in this season. And he knew that from the get-go. So I was pretty transparent with him. I was like, look, this is about to get rough. Like, you don't have to stick around if you don't want to. I'd understand. And he was like, no, I'm here. Like, I'm sticking around whether you want me or not. Yeah. Which was, at that point, I was like, okay, like, this is who you're supposed to, put your time into and energy.
Because you're only 18 at this time?
We're both, 18.
Yeah, I just turned 19 because I was a little bit older.
She's a little older than me.
So was that the 8-hour drives coming home to see her? That
not yet.
At Western, I was only about 2 hours away.
2.5.
And then...
But it was COVID, and he like took big risks because he wasn't supposed to leave campus.
Per team rules, like we were supposed to be stuck on campus, but I was like,
oh, I didn't know they even had rules in Montana about COVID.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It depended.
Yeah, it depended.
Kind of. Yeah, but he's a farm boy. He's like, no, trust me. Trust me. It's the pigs. I don't even know if he had pigs. I'm just making that up.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
No. So I moved home, and then Brayden just would come up, and it was so hard. I felt so terrible too because while we were trying to, the awkward stages of the beginning of a relationship, you're just trying to work through a lot. And so I went through surgery pretty quickly, and it was COVID. So I actually was like by myself a lot in the hospital room. So only my mom could come, and bless my mom's heart. Like she just, I now know, having a daughter of my own who's been through some medical stuff, how that must have felt for her and how it must have been so hard to communicate to me how she was feeling because like how she was trying to protect me in that as well, not making me feel like I had to carry like the weight of what she was feeling. And so, so Brayden couldn't come visit me in the hospital. He, had to wait for me to get out of surgeries and wait to hear from my mom. And so, but we had to get comfortable with each other, like while sitting on my living room couch because my room was upstairs. I couldn't go up the stairs. So like we did a lot of just sitting on the couch and just being in my, and I think that's what helped so much was that he was just like willing to just sit in my company and like didn't have to like it wasn't like this accelerated, like we're constantly growing relationship. It kind of was stagnant from like the beginning at first. We were just kind of like coasting through.
Yeah.
And he wasn't like putting any pressure on me or expecting anything. It was just like, I'm just going to sit with you in this, and I'm here if you need me, when you want to talk and when you're ready to open up. And I think that's what drew me to him the most.
Wow.
So
I want to be like you when I grow up. Because I'd have been what do you need? Where do we go?
Yeah, and
What
he
are you
was
feeling? Do
never
you still
like
me?
that. Yeah.
I need.
Yeah.
I
You know,
definitely would have those thoughts, but I'm
Yeah.
like, I just need to give her
Yeah.
her space right
That's
now.
wise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you get from, like, what's the next stage? Because you didn't stay at
No,
Western Montana.
I did what every college kid does now.
What's
Enter
that?
the transfer portal.
Yeah. The big
No,
NIL
at first
money.
you just came home because I
Yeah.
was supposed to go through another
Yeah,
surgery.
I was going to school to be an elementary teacher, which as time went on, I'm like, I don't think this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yes. No, you're not.
Yeah. And then I find out she has to go through another surgery and is going to be stuck in her house again. So I transferred to MSU, which is Montana State, which is in Bozeman,
Mm-hmm.
and go to school for agronomy. So I'm like, this is going to be great. I can go back, help my dad, make good money doing this. And I'm just like, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing either.
Wow.
So I go-
like you're doing the jump around major thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
As like every college kid does.
Yeah.
And I finally just go meet with our pastor, and he kind of just looks at me in the face. He goes, have you ever thought about being a pastor? And I'm like, no, you don't know my past. Like, I can't do that type thing.
Yeah.
And he just like reassured me that like we're made new in Christ and we're forgiven from our past and we're not the same.
And this was in
person.
2021,
Yeah.
Wow.
like the fall of 2021.
Yeah. And he's like, I pray that you will prayerfully like consider
Consider it.
what I'm telling you like right now. He's like, I just don't tell this to people that come to my office.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave me like the spiritual disciplines book. And he's like, read this, come visit me when you finish it.
Richard Foster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do that. And then it's like the most peace I've felt in a long time about like, okay, I think God's making it clear this is what I'm supposed to do, but I don't know how this is supposed to look. Because I grew up in the Lutheran church. I'm used to one pastor and one pastor only.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to tell my parents that I'm going into ministry, but
It was kind of cool though for us because I had my call to ministry. I just didn't know what that looked like. I was just like, oh, like,
yeah.
I think the last few months of what I was going through before the second surgery I had to go through the second time around,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, like, I don't know why I'm getting nudged to ministry, but like, I would love to work with athletes and I love God and I want to put those two things together.
That's how
And-
I got into ministry.
Yeah.
I love that call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was just like this, like, I want to, and I knew how it felt for me walking through that season of injury and like
And loss.
having the gut wrenching, like, identity crisis of like, okay, I'm not an athlete. That's not who I am. So who am I?
Yeah.
Because people will tell you you're a child of God, but
And
like,
you're like,
you have,
yeah. When you're winning, you
Yes.
know
Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
child of God.
Yeah.
When you hit the ceiling, all of a sudden you're like,
Yeah.
wait.
And
Yeah.
am I? How am I a child of God? Like, what does that mean to me? So I went through a really big shift.
I know because I lived it without injury. It was just ability. I think we talked about this
Yeah.
before. But I want to go back for a second.
Yeah.
And maybe you can answer this better
Yeah.
than he can because it's hard to talk about yourself. What do you think your pastor saw in him that just randomly says, have you ever considered ministry? Because that you don't just say that to someone off the street
No.
if you're a wise guy.
No.
And if he's a pastor and he's obviously someone you respected, you know.
I think too, like at this point, we had like talked to them about a lot of things, like, you know, what I've been through. They had known everything I'd been through. They had known his heart on the whole situation. And I think that just seeing his heart walking with me in that season, and then also just his willingness to serve and jump in, especially coming from the background he came from. But I would say that that's what I saw in him too. It's just like, and even in private, like the conversations Brayden would have and the understanding that he would grasp so quickly, like it just wasn't like, you know, he was sitting asking questions and he wanted to know more, and like his willingness to walk with people is like, I think what totally drew the pastor to like, this is like the type of people we need in ministry is, you know.
I mean, that says a lot about you both.
Yeah.
But it also says a lot about your pastor that he would see that.
Yeah.
Because it was obviously it was a God thing to use the Christianese ghetto term. But then to give you Spiritual Disciplines from Richard Foster,
Yeah.
which is a heavy read,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because there was another book that came later called Spiritual Disciplines for Normal People.
For normal people.
Because I read that, and it's
it's heavy.
Yeah.
I also think too, like I was driving 2 hours up on the weekends just to serve.
Yeah,
at church.
he
Like,
was.
that was the highlight
That
of
was
my
his.
week.
That was his
Really?
home church. So like he was coming every Sunday,
Wow.
and we were serving together in
Yeah.
church. So I think
Like as an usher, or like
It's
No,
just
just
around-
like
yeah. So
escorting people
Yep.
into the parking lot,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
being
opening
like
doors,
a
saying
greeter,
hello.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
or even serving coffee a couple
Yep.
weekends, just like wherever they needed
But you
me.
just love that.
yeah,
Like church was now the
Yeah.
highlight,
yeah. And
whereas
then-
you were sleeping in church or whatever.
yeah,
You were
literally
checking
trying
out.
to stay awake or
Yeah.
coloring with my brother who was 5 because
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
that bored.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think they noticed too, like Brayden's like whatever he does, like he's definitely I always say this to him, like he always just brings a light into the room and just like big energy. And so I think they saw that in him, even just from afar watching him serve. Like you wouldn't know that he was having a bad day, like or a bad morning or something was going on because like he just would show up and not that it was like you were hiding it or shutting
No,
it
but
down,
like
but
an example would be like Gabby did a residency with them and served with the youth.
yeah.
And I don't know, it was one Sunday and 2
Yes.
hours before youth group, I get a call about my cousin who
Yeah.
passed away in a major car accident in Indy. She's like, you don't have to come to youth tonight. Like, it's okay. And I can't go
And
back
Brayden was
home.
distraught. Like
Oh,
it wasn't
yeah.
like it was just this phone call of like
It's just some
a
relative.
long
No,
lost.
it's my
No,
cousin.
like he
Yeah.
grew
Yeah.
up with this cousin, like considered him a brother.
Yeah, I'm broken, but I'm like, I need to show up for those kids tonight. Like, I
Wow.
need to be there.
And he
Wow.
sat there and told them about it.
Yeah.
And so it was just like,
Yeah, like
That-
it just fit in with what
Mhm.
we were talking about. And I was just real with them.
and that's when I knew I'm like, this is what you should be doing. Like this is
Whoa.
your call.
Yeah.
Like if you're willing to take something like that like not a lot of people can get vulnerable about stuff even years after that happens,
Yeah.
let alone an hour or two after it happens. So that was and that was the first time I had seen Brayden in like
Tears.
Yeah,
Other than
like
our first
having
day.
to, like-
Within our first days.
yeah, like to a point where I'm like, how do I support, like, this is like new to me, like helping someone grieve through a loss. Like, and that was like our first hard season other than what I was going through, where
Yeah.
we were like very serious, like
Mhm,
about to get
yeah.
engaged, ready to be married. Like,
Yeah.
and I always say that to people, I'm like, you don't like, it's so hard when you love somebody and you're ready to marry them, and then you go through a season like that and you're just like, oh my gosh, like we're getting down to the like
Nitty
gritty, like and
But you'd already been to the nitty gritty.
Yeah,
Like
and I
even,
think that's-
even when you said
yeah.
loss, like how do I sit with someone who's going through
Which
loss?
is so funny,
It's
right?
like everything
Yeah.
is being, in the world's perspective,
Mhm.
taken from
Yeah.
you,
yep,
Mm-hmm.
and so you were perfectly equipped.
yeah, and I think
You
that's
just don't feel it.
yeah, and just knowing how he served me in that season, I think it was like, okay, I know like he served me in ways that like I know he'll appreciate how I serve him in this season. So, but I would say, yeah, that's what I mean though. Like going back to his, what the pastor saw in him, like it was just things like that it was, I don't know, like people that are called to ministry, I just feel like it's not quite like that sometimes. And
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
or if they are like that, they have a distinct call into a different vocation,
Right.
and are able to come and do that,
Yeah.
in their spare time and free time. And
It
fully
seems
commit.
like
So,
that once you give God, we use the terminology here, giving God your yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
when you just take the next step closer to God.
Yeah.
But once you give him that, okay, I'll serve wherever, do whatever, if ministry's in, that's the biggest jump.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was Florence, Italy, 1990. Not super glamorous. I was just on a missions trip.
Yeah.
And they did the classic Wesleyan deal, which is anyone here feel called to ministry? You go to
Yeah,
Wesleyan
yeah.
church, it's always who wants to get saved, who needs to get recommitted, who wants an infilling, and then it's always
Yeah.
Yeah.
who feels called to the A team.
Yeah.
But it wasn't quite that bad. But I didn't know what, but I gave God my
Mhm.
yes, and I had no idea that what it would be. So I volunteered for sports ministry
Yeah.
because, like you, Gabby, it was like that was my thing.
Yeah.
That was my jam.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it may or may not have been because I, for daggone sure, don't want to do church ministry
Right.
or preaching.
Right.
Yeah.
And then here I are.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Each one just becomes like that fits. So it's kind of like that first call.
Yeah.
With the last podcast, my parents sat right where you guys are, and I found out for the first time at 55, it was the same for them. They have 60 years of ministry and a lot, missionaries, local church pastors, district superintendents, college professors, music teacher, Bible school teacher, all this kind of stuff. After the first yes, and they got married young, just like you guys did. So you may be the next Jim and Jeanette Vermillion. Then it becomes this successive. The next one is just easy. It's like, well, that makes sense, type of thing.
Yeah.
So was it at that time you read the book, you came back, you transferred to Indiana Wesleyan?
No, he goes.
Well, the next meeting, Brayden went in there and was like, okay, I know I'm called. So now what? What do I do now?
What? Yeah. I'm like, does this mean doing a residency with you, going to like a Bible school here? And he goes, no. He goes, go to Indiana Wesleyan. I know 2 of the professors there. They're great. Charlie being one of them, and then
he's a friend of Uncle Charlie's.
He knows Uncle Charlie.
Wow.
And I don't know Eddie Shigley.
And he knows Eddie Shigley.
They have a podcast together.
Yeah.
Good Days
Good
podcast.
Days.
Yeah. Shout out. But and he's like, you go learn from them. And he's like, and do you love Gabby? I'm like, well, yeah, I love Gabby. He's like, are you gonna marry her? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, so what are you waiting for? And
I got to meet this pastor.
He
doesn't mess around.
This is not relationship advice, but he's like, get engaged to her, get married this summer, and go to Indiana.
And take her 1,500 miles away from home.
Wow.
And I call her.
Yeah,
right
he's like,
after.
we have some stuff to talk about. And I'm like, I don't know what that means.
You know if it's good or bad.
Yeah. And then.
And he just laid it out. He was like, look, he told me that we should. And at first, this is me. This is my MO. You'll find out. I'm like, no. We're not going to Indiana. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
And
I respected it.
Yeah.
We started looking at other places in Montana.
Was that after we got, I think this was all before we got engaged.
Yeah. Grand Canyon and other Bible schools. And I'd be on the phone with like their admissions office and the phone would just hang up. Like random. Like somehow lose service, but didn't make sense how I lost service type deal.
And then it was me that we were sitting in the room and I was just like, okay, like maybe we do go to Indiana. Like they have married housing. They have.
And then I'm like, no, not Indiana.
Like, we're not going. He's like, no, we won't go. And I'm like, no, really? Like maybe this is God's way. Like I don't like going against the grain of what God's plan is because it just makes life so much harder.
Yeah.
So it's just like as soon as it was just getting so stressful to find other places, I was like, okay, clearly God wants us somewhere specific and everything kept opening up for Indiana without trying hard.
Yeah, it's like married housing. They're like, oh, you probably won't get in this year.
Yeah.
2 weeks later, she gets an
we got
email.
engaged in January and then started the process of looking into IWU. And it was like, I think it was almost March when I emailed married housing. I was like, hey, we're coming.
Yeah, we were about 6 months late to the party.
And they're like, yeah, we don't have anything. So we were looking at other places and we hadn't been there before. So we're like, oh, no.
We don't know the context of Marion.
Oh, Marion, Indiana. The armpit of it.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, I graduated from Indiana Wesleyan. I met my Force of Nature wife, Darcy, at the Ice Cream Social. So I get it.
Yeah, and then I got an email one day while Brayden was doing concrete to make money for our wedding. And they're like, congrats, you're in married housing. And it was just like,
wow.
Yeah, we don't know how or why.
Got connected with the football coaches.
Yep.
Somehow they flew us out there to go. Like I worked out with them, tried out, made the team, and it was just like, okay, God.
Yeah, like this is where you want us. So, and it was hard because we didn't know how our family was going to react. And this is actually a cool story because when we were looking to go towards other places, I had talked to my mom about a place like Levi Lusko does, like a program out in Kalispell, Montana.
Lusko, I've heard that, yeah.
Yep. And Brayden and I were actually in talks with them to go look at it and see like what they're about. And my mom ran into somebody and had a conversation with them about it. And they had just, their son had went through a really rough time in that program. And my mom was the one to be like, I don't think you should do it. Like if it means you going 1,500 miles away to something healthier, I think that's what you should do. And like knowing my mom, like
I was like,
she doesn't want us separated.
Yeah.
Like
no,
this, like,
she doesn't want you.
She
far
wants
away.
us all together.
5 states away or 4 states away.
So like when my mom said that, we were like, okay, like that's almost like the like definitive answer. Like this is where we're supposed to go because like knowing the conversations with my mom, like. And how scared we were to take him out to dinner and be like, so we're going to get married. And
Then
to
we're gonna
Indiana.
move. Then we're
Yeah.
gonna bounce 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah.
So you got married in summer?
Yeah,
Yep.
July 15th.
Yep. July 15,
And
2022.
had you met these two people he told you to look for already?
Mm-mm.
No, you just
No.
worked out with a football team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd seen the married housing
Yeah.
and Marion, Indiana.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
If you
Indiana Wesleyan's an impressive campus.
It
You're
is,
not gonna lie.
absolutely.
yeah,
It's
if you
beautiful.
asked Eddie, like I went up to him and I was like, "Hey,
Yeah.
I
I'm
was
supposed
told
to
by
come.
a pastor, and I'm supposed to come talk to you.
Yep.
I don't know what that means,
Yeah.
but I did that, and then we
And
had
she's
great
like,
conversation.
okay. Yeah.
And he kind of just took us under his wing
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah.
He's an awesome dude, man.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then, tell him about how you and Charlie got close, because that's funny.
Oh yeah, I don't know if Charlie told you this story.
No, he hasn't.
Okay, so I don't know. In the spring, he takes a group to Cypress in Ohio.
That's a
And-
church in Ohio.
Yeah,
a
he
big,
doesn't know I'm married.
multi-site church, yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't know I'm married yet. And there's some people on staff there that are single. And he's like, you should hook up with this tall, handsome guy. That's what he's saying to them. And I don't know this is going on. And then somehow I overheard him and I'm like, I'm married. And I don't know Charlie well at this point. So I'm like, who is this
Who
guy?
is
Who's
this guy?
professor?
Yeah.
And we're on our way back and he comes up to me in the gas station. He's like, bro, I'm so sorry. And he doesn't know Gabby. He's like, don't tell your wife about
Oh
this.
my
And
goodness.
the first thing Charlie says to me when I meet him, and he's like, I didn't know.
I didn't know.
I did not know.
Oh, my
And I'm like,
goodness.
it's okay.
Oh.
And so, like, for the first
That's
year.
a classic Charlie.
Yeah,
for the
I'll
first
tell you
year
off
being
air
there.
some classic
Yeah.
Charlies where insert foot into thorax.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he just was so funny. Every time, like, I saw him and we talked to anybody, he's like, oh my gosh, you guys, I tried to hook up her husband with someone else.
Oh my days. Wow.
So, but yeah, I mean, we went to IWU, learned a lot, grew, and
Yeah. We then started applying for jobs. And
well, then we had Harper Girl.
Harper Girl, came first.
Yep.
And then
Well, we should
jobs.
talk about Harper.
Yes.
Yeah, let's do
Yes,
it.
Looking
let's
at
do it.
because this might be the first like intro to a staff person that we've ever done a part one and a part two. Because no, seriously.
I know we have a
there's-
lot.
Yeah, but there like I know intuitively sometimes when I'm talking to someone that God's got their hand on for ministry.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I don't always, like, I'm not as assertive as that pastor
Yeah.
because I don't want to try to be the Holy Spirit in someone's
Right.
life.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But the things that you're talking about, like we've just skipped the rock across the surface
Yeah.
of pain and loss
Yeah.
because I know there's more.
hmm
And I don't want to make you talk about it, but there's so many people that struggle with pain and loss.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's so many people that are trying to figure out who is the one for me.
hmm
And I think we miss in 2025 that sometimes you need to listen to people around you
hmm
rather than just what's shiny
Yeah.
or what you think is shiny
Yeah.
or what your timing is or what your plan is. And because even the way you two met,
hmm
city,
Yep.
relatively speaking, for
Yeah, both
Montana,
Angeles.
which, yeah.
Huge city.
And
Stoplights.
your like village, let's be honest, the
No,
sticks.
It's a,
Yeah.
it's
Right.
a village.
Farm boy meets city girl with a plan.
Yeah.
Like even figuring out who is like supposed to be your mate
Yeah.
for the rest of your life,
Mhm.
you know, the one flesh deal.
Mhm.
But then calling, I mean, that's just a big deal. Like
Yeah.
I'm sitting, like when Charlie called us, and this is a spoiler alert, whenever we're looking for like staff people, is specifically for student ministry, because there's only one youth pastor for every 4 churches
Yeah.
hmm
out there right now. I always call Charlie because I love him. I trust him. He was the best youth pastor I ever saw. No offense to all the guys that were youth pastors on our staff, including me, including Adam Ray, Martin, I mean, you name it. But he was like the dude, and he's training youth pastors.
Yeah.
And so I'd always call him, and he never came through. Or they were, and you know, they were always going somewhere else. But when I called him, he was like, "Bro, this is the bro. They're a
Exactly
power
how he
couple.
talks.
They're a power. I know you don't want a 2-for-1, but they are a power couple. You don't even understand. He's a bro. He's in football. And she's the hoops, and they got a baby, and da da da." I mean, he was just going on and on and
Yeah.
on. And he also told me, "You got to watch out." And he started naming churches that he knew that would want you.
Yeah.
And he goes, but you told him about this random barbarian church in the Northlands of Michigan. And I thought it was the longest shot, but you listened. And then it just seems like God's sovereign hand is all over both of you.
Yeah.
And I don't want to cut it short.
No,
That's what I'm saying.
That's crazy.
Like, I don't want to cut this story short because I think it can just help.
Yeah.
Because we haven't even talked about your daughter when she came along.
Yeah.
And then also am I getting it right? I'm horrible with the medical stuff. I would 100% dialed in, but the the nerve thing.
Yeah, it's a sympathetic nervous system.
Yes.
Yeah,
because there's another hammer that's going to drop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So here's the question. Would you come back?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
This was easier than you well, you've done.
Oh,
podcasts.
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
like,
Yeah.
Brayden, were you afraid?
No,
No, it's good.
no, this is great.
Yeah.
I talked him off the ledge last night. He's all right
Oh,
today.
did you?
Just,
I
I'm
don't
kidding.
believe that
I'm kidding.
at all. But yeah, I don't want to rush through the next part of
No,
the story.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just the thread that I'm seeing right now is God's sovereign call on your life to save you,
Mm-hmm.
right? To save you both.
Mm-hmm.
And here you've got this. I mean, Gabby's a force of nature, right?
Oh yeah.
Which is that when I say that's always a good thing. My
Yeah.
wife's a force of nature.
Yeah.
But that attractional piece, that quiet strength,
yeah.
that is like I want to be
Mm-hmm.
with her, and then being that quiet strength through
Mhm.
that, God showing up during this time. Like I know it's hard to think chronologically. Were there any scriptures that you had to hang on to, like to get us to this point where because I know it hasn't been rainbows and unicorns since then,
Mm-mm.
but like was there anything? I mean, was it just the whole book, Richard Foster, or was there certain things that? I mean, you just really felt this is the sweet spot. This is where God spoke to me. This is where I felt the most alive.
I think for me it was solitude and prayer. And then when Gabby was going through her stuff, just be strong and courageous, for I'm the Lord, your God.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm with you. I probably just botched that. Something along those lines.
No. You nailed
But
it.
like that got me through our situation.
Mm-hmm.
But how we got to Buckley was in Isaiah when he says, "Here I am, send me." Because we were praying that prayer for here, a church in Florida,
Yeah, just everywhere. that we were
and
looking
some
at.
other places
And that
out
church
west.
in Florida is a monster.
Monster.
It
I
is
follow
monster.
that church in Florida
Yeah.
on the Instaface.
I just
Yeah.
turned him down
Yeah.
right before I moved here.
Let's go.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, she heard.
Take that, Joby. Only person in America turned down Joby.
No, it's great. The guy I talked to, he's actually been a really big resource
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
continues the conversation still. So
Yeah.
really good people. But I'd say those two scriptures have
Yeah.
gotten.
I think too, just like the reflection, just the wanting to reflect Christ's love, and just like witnessing. Like there was a lot of things where I witnessed His love towards like through my PT or like his wife or like my athletic trainer or things just like the community where I knew those people were Christ followers, and just seeing their willingness to love me through hard seasons, and then to see Brayden, a very new believer, willing to love me and do his best to reflect Christ when he's learning who Christ is completely,
Yeah.
was just like, I think I've always tried to hang on to that the most, is like that just yearning to want to reflect His love, because that's just what everybody needs, is, to not feel like the love is like conditional, but like it's everlasting, and that we should want to model that no matter who someone is or what they're going through. So I think that's what got me through a lot of like what I went through, and then also just like figuring life out together at such a young age, and just like we've done life so rapidly together.
Yeah, you're older souls.
Which is
Yeah.
just
And your
like
age
who we
is-
are.
yeah,
So, but I think that that's just always something that him and I come back to, is like, okay, like we want to reflect Christ in our home, to each other, to others, and like to our kids. And so it's just, and like love is at the top of that list always. So
Yeah,
Well, that's
I
the right
think-
priority.
Yeah.
yeah,
Just seeing God's faithfulness too.
yeah.
Like
oh my
in our
gosh,
story,
yeah.
like even like sitting here on this podcast and reminiscing, it's just like,
It is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yay, God.
Yeah. Yay,
Yeah,
God.
100%. Well, you're coming back We want to have you back. I want to, we'll make a note. We're picking up the story where we got to IWU.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go through Harper.
Yep.
I want to hear about the ministry that you started.
Yep, absolutely.
Because you still have Hartford athletes.
Mm-hmm.
And we also want to talk about where you want to take our students. And I want to say to our podcast family and to you guys, as on public record, I am so excited that you guys are going to be doing life with our students.
Yeah,
I'm sad that my
absolutely.
last one just graduated,
Yeah.
but I'm happy because you're also going to be investing with young adults.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And you're the type of people we want around our students.
Yeah, we're pumped.
Leading
Very
them,
excited.
discipling them, loving them, rebuking them when you have to. Some of mine you'll have to rebuke.
Yeah.
But man, you guys are as advertised. And I mean that's a worldly expression, but to put it in the Star Wars language, the Force is very strong. And I'm not a Star Wars nerdy.
No, me either.
whatsoever.
No, Brayden's not
So,
either.
Have you been to Dublin General Store?
Not yet.
You
I
need to
told
get
her
to
we
the
got to go,
Dublin.
though.
Oh my days! I took my parents there, and
Did they love it?
Yes, because my mother loves all sorts of knickknacks, and they bought steaks for the family and all this kind of stuff. But I did not know there was such a thing as rabbit jerky. I did not buy it, but there was rabbit. There was kangaroo. Who's eating kangaroo jerky, bro?
Okay, see, my friend and I, when we were in middle school, did this. We stopped at a shack on the side of the road, and
Yes.
it was a jerky shack. And
Yes.
I don't even know what I put in my mouth half the time. So
No, well, this is that type of place,
Yeah.
except a little bit classier. So they got the meats. They got an Ace Hardware. So no free shout-outs, Dublin General Store. Thank you for the brats. We love you. Also, if this podcast has been a blessing to you, two things. Number one, share it with somebody. Number two, look out for part two. So we'll advertise it as part one, and then it's going to be part two with the Cromwell.
absolutely,
go.
sounds great.
Does it feel weird being called the Cromwells?
No, that's what we
No,
were called on
that's-
campus.
yeah.
The
Mom and
Cromwells.
dad.
The Cromwells or mom and dad.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You were
Dad
like mom and
Cromwell,
dad on
Mom
campus?
Cromwell, yeah.
Oh,
The
my
Cromwells. That's how
goodness.
they were always, yeah.
Oh, the Cromwells.
Absolutely. So,
And and then we'll get into the Harper story
yeah.
too. So
it's a
that'll be
long,
cool.
yeah. It's
That's a long story.
our
so.
journey's very long.
Do you like cake?
Love cake.
Okay.
I don't eat a lot of cake, but I love cake.
If you love cake, Trace Cakes is the place to get your cakes.
Okay.
You met Trace, right?
Uh-huh.
Last weekend, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Didn't you guys both meet her? Did you not?
don't know
On
if
Sunday,
you
she's
did.
Trace Space. Otherwise, she's Trace Cakes.
Okay.
If you have some culinary desires, you want to learn how to do cakes.
Yeah.
It's right there in Kingsley.
Let's go.
That's super
on your
cool.
way, on your long drive.
Mhm.
But
Oh my gosh.
we're
yeah.
super excited you guys got a house.
Yes.
Next time, we should probably shout out your realtor.
Yeah.
No, for real.
No,
We just try to
actually,
bless people who are part of the blessing,
No,
right?
literally.
So,
Yeah.
kind of let's go.
We have to. Yeah.
Yeah. Big help.
Sweet. So we'll do it again.
Okay.
So podcast family, thank you. Thank you, Gabby. Thank you, Brayden. Not only for saying yes to being on the podcast, but saying yes to Jesus a long time ago. Yes into ministry. Yes to IWU. Yes to all the things that got you here. And I am just super fired up about
Mm-hmm.
what God has in store.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're pumped.
Mhm.
Big
It'll be good
things.
days.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
So, Lord Matthew, did we get it all? We're good.
Let's
Okay,
go.
sweet. So until next time, this is Gabby Cromwell, Brayden Cromwell, Lord Matthew Corey Hughes, and John Vermilia signing off.